I want to talk first about his conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, in which they discussed both Ukraine and Iran. The president alluded to the fact that Russian President Putin had said he wanted to be a part of the solution when it came to Iranian nuclear enrichment. However, the president said, in fact, he wants to focus more on ending the war with Ukraine. Walk us through what we know about this conversation, how long it went on, and what prompted it.
As we understand that, it's been lasted about an hour and a half. Then this was a surprise. We didn't expect the president to speak with Vladimir Putin today, and he did talk about, that the subject of Iran came up. He did also speak that the main focus of it was the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has been a source of frustration for President Trump, who has, in essence, bragged that he has brought to an end several conflicts around the world, but the one that has seemed to elude him, especially because he talked about ending it so quickly after he took office, is this ongoing war in Ukraine. The president saying he spoke with Vladimir Putin about this. He asked him for what he called some sort of a little ceasefire in the ongoing war. We have no indication that Vladimir Putin is planning on announcing any such thing. But the President Trump also talked about that Vladimir Putin offered to help the United States perhaps take some of the enriched uranium outside of Iran. President Trump didn't seem to suggest that that would be in the cards, but he did confirm that President Putin and himself did talk about the ongoing war in Iran throughout the span of their hour-and-a-half-long conversation. Yes.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.